They are next because we have the exact same record prediction for this team. 5-12 for the Raiders. Might seem a little bit harsh. Sure, Walt's in the chat, not happy about this one with this team finishing with only 5 wins, missing out on the playoffs. What do you think about the Raiders situation? Were you tempted to go higher with the win total? Are we being too big of haters here with the Raiders? And then give me the offensive MVP that you think could mean a lot to this team.
So they could definitely have a couple more wins in this because their defense, once Antonio Pierce took over, the defense played a lot better. We'll get into that for a minute. I do worry about this quarterback situation and some of the reports coming out of Vegas with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell have not been real positive throughout the preseason. Minshew's going to start. I know he played reasonably well for the Colts last year, but some of the under-the-hood numbers kind of portray more of a gunslinger, kind of a high turnover-worthy play rate. Like there's some things in there that concern me with both of them, with Minshew and O'Connell, and it reminds me a bit of when we walked into with the Atlanta Falcons season last year, and it was like, okay, we have a really good O-line, and we just drafted Bijan Robinson. We have Drake London. We have Kyle Pitts. We got Jesse Bates in free agency. We're starting to roll on defense. We have Calais. But we have Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke. And it feels a little bit like, to me, we have Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. And in a scheme, now Minshew's away from Shane Steichen because he was with Shane Steichen in Philly when he was the backup, and I believe won a big game or two for them. He was with Shane Steichen last year with the Colts when they darn near won the division, but now he's away from that environment, right? So not as easy. Now you're going to Luke Getsy, who obviously there was struggles over there with the Bears and Justin Fields and all of that. How does the quarterback and offensive coordinator situation really pan out for this team? Now, offensive MVP, there is a guy they can rely on every week, every year, all the time. I think the most underappreciated tackle in the league, Trevor, and that's Colton Miller at left tackle for them. This guy, he just shows up every year, every week and every year, just so consistent, right? And I think when we talk about the elite tackles, right, the Trent Williams and the Penei Sewells and the Tristan Wirfs and Lane Johnsons and all these guys, I don't think we give Colton Miller enough credit. Last year, an 80.2 overall grade, 11th best among all tackles, right? And since 2020, an 87.1 pass pro grade, right? The only left tackles better than that: David Bakhtiari, Laramie Tunsil, Andrew Whitworth, who's not even playing anymore, and Trent Williams. You're talking about this guy, especially in pass protection, is among the elite players in football. Whoever's playing quarterback can at least sleep well at night knowing he's going to wake up on Sunday mornings and that day he's going to get protected by Colton Miller. Shocks me, absolutely shocks me that he hasn't made a Pro Bowl yet. It's unreal, and I know there's a ton of good offensive tackles in the league. Colton Miller, at some point, he's got to make at least one Pro Bowl. Please, someone vote for him, because this guy is as reliable as any tackle in the league on either side. He's an excellent pass protector. He's a solid run blocker. He just does everything so well. He's one of the few constants in their offense every single year, even though we talk about quarterbacks, and this year we talk about who's in their running back rotation and what's going on there, and is Devontae Adams going to get traded? I can tell you right now, Colton Miller is going to go out every week, and he's going to play really, really well, and he's still probably going to get underappreciated.
The crown jewel of Mike Mayock's time as general manager, right? Yeah. Or no, he was the year before, I think. Oh man, so Mayock doesn't even get credit.
I don't remember the timing.
I'm sorry, Mike. I just looked it up. I thought it started at 2018 because that was when Colton Miller got drafted. He was the 2018 draft, but Mayock was after in 2019. Sorry, Mike. I tried to give you some credit there, but to no avail. I think that Colton Miller's fantastic. I think it's a really good shout out by you. Obviously, how the quarterbacks play, a major part of how well this team is going to play. I think that Zeus White, Zamir White, their running back, is also a major factor in how well this team is going to be able to play offense, because if they can't run the football well, that's the one thing that I'm really worried about with this defense. I think this defense could be really good in Las Vegas, but if you can't run the football and keep the defense off the field a little bit, well, then it's a numbers game at that point. There's too many good offenses in the NFL. You're going to see more points given up, more yards given up for as good as that unit is. You want to limit possessions, in the way that you did that is running the ball. So I think the running the ball matters a lot for this team. But in terms of an offensive MVP, a player that has a lot of value that I think could maybe swing our expectations of how good this offense can be is Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers, 3 straight seasons at Georgia, the elite overall grades. He was the best tight end that we have seen in the country over the last couple of years. I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Max has made the argument for Brock Bowers being the greatest college football tight end of all time because of how well he has been able to just hit the ground running when he was a true freshman, and obviously how dominant that he continued to be as a sophomore and a junior. So if Bowers, along with Michael Mayer, can make that one of the premium tight end rooms in the NFL and continue to hit the ground running, that's an X factor that could really swing things in favor for this team. I already know Devontae Adams is going to be good. I mentioned how pivotal the run game is, but to me, that who is most valuable to this team, if Brock Bowers can look anything like the Brock Bowers that we saw at Georgia sort of right off the bat, you've all of a sudden got a much more serviceable, much more maybe potent is the better word, offense than what it looks like on paper before the season is starting. So I'm going with Brock Bowers here, but what about your defensive MVP? Who you got defense here?
One other really quick thing on Bowers and the luxury of having Mayer there is big time for this because Mayer is a very traditional throwback. Well, it's throwback Notre Dame tight ends that you could have in any decade we've ever seen football. But Bowers, the versatility is going to be a big thing. The one preseason game he did play, right? Played 11 snaps. He lined up at 9 different spots. I think that's the preview that you're going to get with Bowers is he's going to be all over the place in the slot as an H-back sort of thing. He could line up out wide. He's that good. I think that's the one thing with Bowers too is his level of versatility is going to be crucial to their offense. Defensive MVP, look, there's some good players on this defense and some good players that got a lot better on this defense late in the year after Pierce took over, but Max Crosby's the dude. That's just not. It's just he's so – we're watching – you know what's funny to me? I'm looking at Max Crosby numbers, and I'm obviously we see him every week, and we see him in the highlights every week, and it feels like he's been around forever, doesn't it? It
does.
I don't know why. It feels like I've been watching Max Crosby play football for like 15 years, and then I look up, he just turned 27 last week.
That's actually pretty surprising. I would have guessed 29. I would have confidently guessed 29.
I don't know why this threw me off. I was like, he just turned 27 last week, and I'm like, wait, he's just hitting his prime. This is the beginning of his prime. This is nuts.
Yeah.
4th in overall grade last year among edges. Number 1 in run D grade with a 92.7. One of the best pass rushers in football. Just one of the best everything in football. I don't care if you've got if you're making like a top 20 list of players, if not higher than that, you don't have Max. I think he got in the top 10 this year, didn't he?
Which category?
In the NFL top 100. I think he snuck his
top 10.
I think he snuck his way into like 8 or 9 or something like that, like a top 10 player. You might have to look at it, but no, he's one of the elite players in football, and he's just the effort he brings. Sometimes you get star players who kind of pick and choose when they want to play, but Max Crosby brings it every single play. He's just got like that dog mentality, pass rush, run D. He could drop into coverage and do some things, I'm sure of it, and he would give you 100% effort. This guy is just talent, the perfect combination of talent, effort, and execution. That's just like, man, oh man, he's an elite player in this league. He makes this defense go. I know there's some other guys playing well around him, especially the second half of last year, but I don't think he can be said enough. When we talk about Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Micah Parsons, Max Crosby is in the inner circle. Not like, knocking on the door, he's great in the mid-80s. Like, no, he's in that inner circle. If you talk about elite players, Max Crosby's an elite player.
Yeah, he is not often. You were right, by the way. He was number 10 on the NFL Top 100 this year. He is not often enough mentioned with TJ Watt and Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons and Nick Bosa. A lot of people just talk about, it's the big four, it's the big four. It's a big five. Like it's absolutely a big five. Crosby, 3 straight years of elite PFF grades. What I really want to see from him this year is, the last 2 years have been very strong from him. I just mentioned elite PFF grades from him, but last 2 years, pass rush win percentage was in the 15s. It was 15-point-something% pass rush win percentage. In the 2021 season, it was in the 20s, right? I want it to be back up by the 20s. And that's the thing about those other 4 guys is Watt is sometimes a little bit up and down. His production stays up, but his pass rush win percentage is sometimes a little bit up and down. But Parsons, Garrett, Nick Bosa, those guys are consistently above 20% pass rush win percentage players. Crosby has the ability to do it. I want to see it again this year, which will continue to hopefully chip away at giving him the respect that he deserves as one of the best edge rushers in the league. What about a breakout player that we have for the Las Vegas Raiders?
All right, this is a fun one. Of all the breakout players we've done so far, this is my favorite one to watch. All right.
Okay.
So, Trevor, did you wake up this morning ready for a rant on the University of Buffalo?
With you, my friend, I have to wake up ready for literally any sort of obscure rant. So let's hit. I didn't know that it was going to be Buffalo, but hit me with it. Let's go.
Obscure rants are like my favorite thing ever, by the way. All right, here we go. So, set the stage. You have Max Crosby. You've had him for a few years. You know he's great. We're trying to find a guy across from him who's gonna be that number 2 guy, the guy who take the triple teams off of Crosby and do all that, right? We draft Tyree Wilson last year with the 7th overall pick. We're getting through the first half of the year. We're struggling. Our coach is about to get fired. Tyree Wilson is struggling to really kind of find his NFL footing, right? He's kind of a lot of talent there, a lot of measurables, kind of a project, right? He's kind of struggling. We're still looking. We're rotating guys at that other spot. Crosby plays every snap because he's a freak of nature, right? We get to Antonio Pierce being the head coach, and I've got a guy suddenly emerging on the other side. Last year, a 3rd-year man. This year, a 4th-year man out of the University of Buffalo, a school and a position that Raider fans are very, very familiar with, a guy they drafted very high a long time ago and then traded to Chicago and Khalil Mack, right? Yep. They're familiar with really good edge rushers from the University of Buffalo, and they got another one in Malcolm Kuntz, okay? Let me tell you something. When Pierce took this team over, he made Malcolm Kuntz the starter opposite Max Crosby. This guy's a freak. I'm telling you right now, and actually since the merger, he's the 2nd highest drafted player out of the University of Buffalo behind Khalil Mack. So, what did he do last year? He's a power rusher. He's got pass rush moves. He's a really good athlete. Weeks 10 through 18, the second half of last year, a 90 overall grade, the 10th best in football in that stretch. Of course, who's 1 spot ahead of him? Max Crosby. So you're talking about a team that played the second half of last year with 2 top 10 edges. Okay, here's the other one. You want a fun stat that just, of course, makes all the sense in the world?
You're going to give it to me no matter what, so go ahead.
Of course. In that same stretch, only 2 edge players, okay, in those 9 weeks had top 10 run D and pass rush grades. One of them was Malcolm Kuntz, and of course the other one was Khalil Mack. Because of course it was. Because only University of Buffalo edge players could do that, right? Because of course. No, this guy, for real, Trev, if you turn on the tape of him, it starts with a bull rush. It goes with a counter inside move. Sometimes there's just a rip outside move. There's everything in the arsenal. I don't know what they were doing to develop this guy the last 2 years before 2023 because he barely played. But man, oh man, they may have found a freak. They may have found an actual freak, a guy across from Crosby. There are reps in pass rush on tape where the opposing offense is chipping and doubling Kuntz instead of Crosby, and Crosby singled up. That's how good he was playing. And if you look at when the Raiders beat the Chiefs, what was it on Christmas Day, right? I'm pretty sure it was Day. I think it was
later. It was later in the season.
I think it was Christmas. I'm pretty sure it was Christmas Day that Monday when the Raiders went in there and beat the Chiefs without throwing hardly any passes. And a big reason was Malcolm Kuntz giving their tackles the absolute work. Even more so than Crosby. So I'm going to tell you right now, the Raiders are familiar with University of Buffalo pass rushers. We've seen, look, that school doesn't put out a lot of players, but lately they've been putting out some really good ones. You've got Khalil Mack, you've got Malcolm Kuntz, you got Buffalo Joe Andreessen, who just made the Bills roster, and to top it all off, you want to know what else, Trevor? University of Buffalo, that's where my mom went to law school. So clearly, all they do is produce greatness. That's so
the bias is here. Now I understand. Hey, you're pushing the agenda.
I've got the numbers to back it up. They're right here. This guy is the man across from Max Crosby. They have found their number 2 edge rusher from a school that clearly only produces greatness. But in all seriousness, man, if you haven't seen the tape of Kuntz in the second half of last year yet, please go watch it. This is the most fun I've had watching any of these breakout players that we've talked about so far.
Kuntz is a reason why my bold prediction for this Raiders team is having a top 5 defense in the NFL, because I thought the Raiders were good last year. I didn't even realize how good they were. You mentioned since Antonio Pierce took over, they were 7th in total scoring defense in the NFL. They were 9th in total defensive PFF grade last year. So, the EPA per play allowed was, I think, 17th or 18th. So it was a little bit lower, but this group there are plenty of reasons to think that they're going to be even better this year. You mentioned Malcolm Kuntz is one of them. I think I've heard some other people talk about him throughout the offseason, but that was a very great detailed breakdown, which, look, just saying, shameless plug here. If you guys have a PFF subscription, you could go on your own tangents and rants like this because you can get some fantastic premium stats like Dalton just laid out for you for guys like Malcolm Kuntz for your favorite team. Also, just want to say, love a good since the merger stat. Like anytime you get to start your analysis or a statistic or something with since the merger, I love a good since the merger stat.
Oh yeah, so, 1970 is a long time ago, right? We got to have that. I had to cut it off because there was one guy drafted earlier. It was the third round back in like 60 something when there was like 12 teams and it was only like 12 picks per round. I go, okay, that's not. I need the merger here. I need the whole league. I need the AFL involved here with this.
No, it's like the NBA as well. Again, like anytime anybody gets to start a sentence with since the merger, I'm paying attention.
Oh, the shot clock era. That's the NBA one for that.
Oh yeah, shot clock that's era. A good one too.
Oh yeah, that's always a classic. Yeah.
My breakout player, I'm staying on the defense. I'm going with cornerback Jack Jones. I think this dude's in for a monster year. 2 interceptions in each of the last 2 seasons, a little bit lower, but I just think that he is a smaller corner, but a feisty. He is competitive as hell. Coverage grades of 76.0 and 71.9 over the last couple of seasons, but this preseason specifically, on just 28 coverage snaps, he already nabbed himself an interception, got a forced incompletion, had a 90.6 coverage grade. He looks like he is playing so confidently, and I think that this is a big-time breakout year for Jack Jones. I think he's going to be a beast. The team's best rookie, I already talked about it with Brock Bowers. It's Brock Bowers for me. It has to be. Is it also Brock Bowers for you for the team's best rookie?
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. I would have, if he was starting, which it doesn't look like he's going to, I would have considered Jackson Powers-Johnson too. But no, it's Brock Bowers. I think just such as good a tight end as we've seen come out of college in a while. And to me, what he adds is 2 things. The versatility. He's a chess piece, right? I think he's the ultimate chess piece in this offense. I mentioned it before in the one preseason game he played, 11 snaps lined up at 9 different positions. You're going to have to find him every snap. And he's one of the best after-the-catch threats, not just at tight end, but one of the best after-the-catch threats that we've tracked in college football, tracking it for the last 10, 11 years, certainly over the last 3 years. I believe he has the most yards after catch of any Power 5 tight end that we've ever tracked. It's what he does. He breaks tackles. He makes plays after the catch. He can turn a 5-yard pass into a 20-yard gain. He's a chain mover. Scores touchdowns. Honestly, a little bit like George Kittle, where you could hand the ball to this guy and he can make things happen, right? Yes. You could get Brock Bowers going on a jet sweep from under center, and he's going to make it happen. They did it at Georgia. He had several games with multiple carries at Georgia. Just get him. He's a football player. He's a football player's football player. That's really what a lot like George Kittle. Not as good a blocker as Kittle, I'll admit that. But when you look at him with the ball in his hands and what he can do after the catch and breaking tackles and the speed, deceptive speed too, he's the full package. And I think he's the guy who, when you talk about having that chess piece that can make other people open up lanes for other people, open up routes for other people, you just always have to find him. He's going to be a matchup problem, no question.